This is the 9th video presentation for the CASE Natural Resources and Ecology course. As you view this video, be sure to make notes of important information. Feel free to pause, repeat, and resume the video whenever necessary. Plant Communities, Lesson 6.1, All Natural Flora. You have completed Lesson 5.1, The Energy of Life. This presentation provides information about sampling techniques and biodiversity surveys used in ecology. A plant community is not a haphazard collection of organisms, but consists of populations of species whose tolerances match those of the environment and ecosystem in which the plant community resides. Plants are the primary producers of an ecosystem. Plants capture light energy radiated from the sun and convert it into the sugars and starches that other organisms consume for energy. Plants convert raw materials such as carbon from the atmosphere and inorganic minerals and compounds from the soil, including nitrogen, potassium, and iron, and make these elemental nutrients available to other life forms. From their simplest forms, such as algae, to towering giants, such as redwoods, plants provide food and habitat. Plants make oxygen available, which is critical for most animals and humans. Plant communities provide shelter, cycle nutrients, and protect water quality. Biodiversity refers to the variation of species and life forms within an ecosystem. Biodiversity is important to the life of an ecosystem, but in many environments, a single plant or group of related plants dominate an ecosystem. The plant community is usually the largest, most visible part of an ecosystem. Often, both the community or the ecosystem are named for the dominant plants present. For example, redwood forests and tallgrass prairies are named for the dominant types of species. Quantitative information about a plant community is desirable for planning and evaluating the success of restoration and replacement of vegetation projects that may occur in a plant community or ecosystem, and in agricultural management of lands and flora. When you conduct a vegetative survey, there are a few different techniques you could use. Quadrats are plots of standard size and used for most plant communities. A quadrat outlines an area in which vegetation cover can be estimated, plants counted, or species listed. Quadrats can be established randomly, regularly, or subjectively within a study site. A relevé involves the surveyor walking through a stand, recording all of the species encountered and describing the habitat and soil profile. Plotless sampling involves the use of sampling points, one-dimensional transect lines, or certain distances within the sand being sampled. The advantages of plotless sampling are 1, that a sample plot does not need to be established, and 2, the elimination of subjective error associated with the sample plot boundaries. Distance methods measure the distance from a sampling point or plant to the nearest plant. The results of such a technique provide important information about the relationships between plants. Distance methods help determine whether plants are growing in ecologically important patterns or are randomly dispersed. Many specific plant relationships are difficult to observe without using distance-based sampling techniques. Sampling with aerial photography using large-scale color or infrared photographs are useful for mapping and recording individual plant species in a range of vegetation types. The word relevé means list, statement, or summary. Among the meanings most relevant to its use in vegetation study. A relevé is a list of the plants in a delimited plot of vegetation, with information on species cover and on substrate and other abiotic features in the plot. Typically, the vegetation is stratified into height categories chosen to describe apparent vertical structure. And in each stratum, each plant is assigned a cover value based on its representation in that stratum. Note that in a relevé, there is no specification of how the placement of the plot is determined or how the plot samples are related to the surrounding vegetation. As a review, mark or highlight 3 key points in your notes that are important to remember from this presentation. List 2 ideas or concepts that relate to previous knowledge. List any questions you have about this topic. Discuss these questions with your instructor. Keep any notes you have from this presentation organized and available for use throughout the course. Through Activity 611, Exploring Biodiversity, you will determine the biodiversity of plants in an area using a common sampling technique. Your teacher will share instructions for the sampling frames that you and your partner will use during the survey.